Have you ever believed in second chances, not just in love, but in life itself? Because tonight's story will remind you that sometimes, the most unexpected moments become the greatest blessings. So before we begin, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and stay until the very end, because the truth behind this Christmas Eve blind date will touch your heart in ways you won't forget. It was Christmas Eve, and the city sparkled with lights, laughter, and snowflakes that floated like whispers of hope. But for Ethan, a 32-year-old single dad, the night was anything but magical. His old pickup had broken down again, his shoes were soaked from slush, and his little daughter Lily was back home with a fever. He had promised a friend from work he'd go on a blind date tonight, just one evening to feel like a person again instead of a man constantly fighting to survive. But as he glanced at the cracked watch on his wrist, he realized he was already 40 minutes late. He almost turned back. What kind of woman would still be waiting for a man like him, a broke mechanic, a widower, with tired eyes and oil-stained hands? But something inside him whispered that he had nothing to lose. So, despite the biting cold, he jogged toward the restaurant, breath clouding in the frosty air, his heart heavy with guilt for being late but even heavier with loneliness. Inside La Lumiere, the soft glow of chandeliers painted everything gold. Couples smiled, wine glasses clinked, and Christmas music floated through the air. At the corner table by the window sat a woman, elegant, graceful, wrapped in a red coat that looked more expensive than his entire year's rent. Her eyes were calm, yet distant, as she stared at the snow outside. That was Claire, CEO of one of the city's biggest marketing firms. To the world, she had everything: power, money, and success. But tonight, she was just a woman who had grown tired of being alone. Her assistant had set up this blind date as a fun Christmas surprise, and Claire almost cancelled. But something made her stay. Maybe it was the way the snow kept falling, or maybe she just wanted to believe that even someone like her could still be surprised by life. When Ethan finally arrived, out of breath and covered in snow, the hostess hesitated before leading him to her table. He looked wildly out of place among the tuxedos and designer dresses. His jacket was torn, and his scarf was hand-knitted, likely by a child. But when Claire looked up and their eyes met, something shifted. He didn't fit the room, but somehow, he fit the moment. "I'm so sorry," Ethan said, voice low but sincere. "My truck broke down and..." Claire smiled softly. "It's okay. You came. That's what matters." He blinked, surprised. He had expected judgment, maybe even laughter, but her tone was warm, like a fireplace after a storm. They talked awkwardly at first, but soon laughter replaced hesitation. Ethan shared stories of fixing cars in freezing weather, of raising Lily alone after his wife's passing. Claire found herself listening, really listening, for the first time in years. She told him about her world of boardrooms and deadlines, of loneliness hidden behind success. They were from different worlds, yet somehow, they understood each other perfectly. Two souls who had lost something and were quietly searching for a reason to believe again. Hours passed unnoticed. The waiter brought dessert, but neither touched it. They were lost in conversation, in the kind of connection that didn't need expensive words, just truth. When Ethan finally checked the time, it was almost midnight. "I should go," he said, reluctant but anxious about Lily. "My daughter's homesick. She's only 7. Claire's eyes softened. "You're a father?" He nodded. "Yeah. She's my whole world." Without thinking, Claire reached across the table and gently squeezed his hand. "She's lucky to have you." That simple touch sent warmth through him that no Christmas fire could match. He smiled, thanked her for waiting, and left with a quiet promise that maybe, just maybe, he'd see her again. But the story didn't end there. The next morning, Ethan woke up to the sound of laughter. Lily was feeling better, and when he walked outside to check his broken truck, he froze. Parked in front of his house was a sleek black SUV, and stepping out, holding 2 cups of coffee, was Claire. "I figured you might not have had breakfast," she said shyly. "And I wanted to meet Lily." Ethan was speechless. She looked out of place in his small, snow-covered neighborhood, but she smiled as if she belonged. Lily peeked from the window, giggling when she saw the lady in red. That morning turned into another meeting. Then another. Claire and Lily became inseparable, baking cookies, reading bedtime stories, and decorating a tiny tree together. Ethan watched in awe as Joy returned to his home, laughter that had been missing for years. But as weeks passed, Ethan began to worry. He didn't belong in her world. One night, he told her, "Claire, you deserve someone who can give you everything. I can barely make ends meet." She looked at him for a long moment, then said softly, "Ethan, you already gave me something no one else ever could. Peace." Tears glistened in his eyes. On Valentine's Day, Claire invited him and Lily to her company's charity gala. It was their first time seeing her in her element, powerful, confident, commanding a room. But when she stood to give her speech, she looked straight at him. "I used to think success meant money, fame, and control," she said, voice trembling slightly. "But this year, I learned it's about love, courage, and kindness. And sometimes, it comes from the person you least expect." The crowd applauded. Ethan blinked back tears. A year later, on another snowy Christmas Eve, Ethan and Lily stood by the same restaurant, this time waiting. When Claire arrived, he knelt down, pulled a small ring from his pocket, and said quietly, "I was late last time. I'm not making that mistake again." She laughed through tears and said yes. And as the snow began to fall again, they walked hand in hand, a CEO, a mechanic, and a little girl who now had two hearts loving her instead of one. Sometimes, the greatest gifts don't come wrapped in gold paper or under fancy trees. Sometimes, they come in the form of a second chance and the courage to show up, even when you're late. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it. Because somewhere out there tonight, another heart is waiting, just like Claire waited for Ethan. And maybe, just maybe, it'll be the Christmas Eve that changes everything.